Hey, welcome into Restaurant Techno Babble, presented by Coco. Today, I'm your host, Jensen Cummings. That right there is Zach Rash, co-founder and CEO of Coco. Zach, good to have you on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
We got a lot to get into. All right. So for everybody, Restaurant Techno Babble, as always, is our attempt, an ongoing attempt to translate so much of the technology jargon that sounds amazing and high valuations for VCs that confuses the hell out of all the rest of us, especially those in restaurants. And so we're going to get into translating a few things today. Today's episode specifically RTB006. We're going to talk about third-party delivery driver order matching and remote piloted autonomous vehicles. I can't even get the words out because I don't know what any of that stuff means. Zach, that's why you're here. So those are the two topics: order matching and remote piloted autonomous vehicles, what Coco very specifically specializes in. If you're in LA, you've seen the Coco rovers around town. So let's start at the beginning a little bit. For everybody out there in the restaurant world, order matching. This is what's happening basically when you get an order in from a DoorDash, a Grubhub, an Uber Eats, right? And you see drivers are accepting, drivers are declining orders. You have the accept and then decline. And there's a lot happening on the back end that we don't understand. We just know that the food that's supposed to go to Zach Rash is not leaving our building. The timing has been an issue. So we understand that there's something happening in the back end of these apps, Zach, that we don't know. We don't want to know. We just want to know that it's working correctly. Order matching. What the hell is order matching? What's going on in the back end? Tell us about it.
Yeah, when we started Coco, this is something we totally didn't appreciate. And part of the core reason, in one of the core philosophies of Coco is we wanted to start by getting a product out to merchants as soon as possible. I think a lot of companies say we're going to build autonomous vehicles. We're going to have this, R&D lab that's going to make, super low cost delivery, but they never actually get in front of a restaurant for 10 years. They don't understand these kind of nuanced workflows. Well, how does a restaurant use a robot? Does a restaurant want to use a robot?
It's a whole different industry in 10 years and 5 years and 2 years.
Totally.
Right? Yeah.
Totally. And restaurant, like your job working in a restaurant is hard enough. And the last thing you want is, here's a robot that you have to manage now. So this is one of those things we learned when we started doing it. Is it ended up being a huge pain point for a lot of these restaurants that I didn't appreciate, is that if you have a restaurant that's really busy, say you're doing a lot of third-party delivery orders, and you have a pizza oven that gets really backed up, especially with the guests that are dining in, and it takes 45 minutes to cook that pizza, or 30 minutes to cook that pizza, or something like that. Well, the salad that someone else ordered, the salad plus a bottle of wine or something, that might take 5 minutes to prep. And it's very difficult for these third-party delivery companies to know specifically how long until this item's ready, how long until this item's ready. And then you have all these problems where that order is getting matched to a driver, when the order is being placed. And so it's not necessarily the first order ready is going to match with the first driver that shows up.
Yeah, that never works.
Yeah, and if you do a lot of delivery, that's a huge headache to manage, right? And so I think we realized this. We started working with this one restaurant that does hundreds of orders a day on third-party delivery, and they're really busy in the store too. And it's a family-owned restaurant, and they did not have a demand problem. They did not have a profitability problem. They have this crazy operational problem. And the number one value we could add to them with Coco was simplifying the operational flow. And that was something we didn't expect when we started it. So what Coco allows them to
do it, because I think sometimes, speaking to a lot of founders and a lot of people in technology, you get kind of singularly focused in the work that you're trying to do, and you don't see the forest through the trees. A lot of times restaurants struggle with that as well. And so that's an important part of the approach, which is why I think some of the technology that we're talking about has struggled a little bit, because it's taking this macro approach and then shoving a round peg in a square hole and expecting it to fit for all restaurants. And so let's get into that order matching side. Just get as technical, and I'll stop you when I have no idea what the hell you're talking about, but that's what we need to know. We need to understand what's happening, order matching. Some people have never even heard of that when they're thinking about what's happening in that app. So what is order matching, and where's it breaking down?
Yeah, so order matching is the process where the delivery platforms are matching a driver to the order that was placed. And then the kind of core issue there, like I said, is the drivers who are accepting that order might not be the first driver to arrive. They might not be assigned the order that's ready first. And some restaurants have huge variance in how long it takes to cook certain items. Their busyness changes throughout the day, and a lot of third-party delivery platforms will also penalize the restaurant if the food's not ready when they said it was going to be ready. And this can be a really variable time, right? I mean, it gets really busy at certain times of day, or you have a staff call out, or there's a lot of issues that can cause that to change, right? So it's a really hard problem, and places that do a lot of volume feel this pain pretty dramatically compared to someone who might do, a little bit of incremental sales with
and so let me make sure I understand. So a DoorDash order comes in, right? It shows up on my tablet. Hopefully you guys have some kind of order aggregator, so it shows up on one tablet, not 3, 4, 5 tablets. I've seen that. That's a nightmare on top of a nightmare, right? Then that order comes through. You have some kind of time. You're saying 35 minutes based on volume at this given time. That number is never correct, right? Never correct. It's always too fast or too slow. So you already have a variable there that's problematic. Then it's saying, okay, here's the first order that came in. Now it's matching to the first driver. Then you have drivers on the other side that are sitting a block away, 5 blocks away, a mile away, right? And they see this order pop up. They get a ding on their phone, and they can accept or decline. And I want to talk about the decline now, #decline now movement within drivers, because there's a lot of animosity building there that I think is exacerbating the problem with the technology, the human error in that. And then they're accepting, let's say, the order. Now that order is matched. I'm your driver, and I'm coming to pick up that order. And I show up, and that order is not ready. Now, this also happens where they have then the option to decline that order. So they showed up, it's not ready. Yeah. They're not willing to wait 5 minutes. There's bad communication between the restaurant. There's a bottleneck at the host stand. We've seen all that. And then they decline that order. So now that order is getting kicked back into a queue. Meanwhile, 4 other orders have come in, got matched to other drivers, and you're kind of playing this domino game where you're catching up. That's what
compounds.
So many people are having PTSD as I'm saying this right now. So that's a major issue on the technology side. And then you have the human side of drivers saying, well, this place is always behind. I'm going to decline them. And there's whole Facebook pages where they're kind of putting restaurants on blast and putting this process on blast. It makes it really hard for restaurants to kind of look at that. Am I missing any parts of the way that interaction, that relationship actually work?
No, that's totally right, and you can see when you get into the details there. There's a lot of different things that compound to make it worse and worse and worse.
Like an SNL skit right there.
I know it's a nightmare. I mean, we go to like a ghost kitchen, and then it's like now you got 30 brands all with the same problem. It's crazy, and these platforms have built a good solution for this for like QSRs, right? They've solved that problem with QSRs because the prep times are so fast that they just wait till a driver gets there and they cook the food and then they hand it to the driver. So that's a good solution for QSRs. But if you're a local restaurant that's serving food to your guests who are dining in,
let's maybe give the restaurants a little bit of insight here. That timing is important. I mentioned that number. It's 35 minutes is what you're saying, to then have it be the driver to be there to then have the delivery time. We don't manage that very well. It's kind of like how long from my table? Oh, it's about a 15-minute wait. That's a 24-minute wait. That's a big difference when you scale that out across how many seatings. It's the same thing when you talk about how many online orders. So getting your timing right is pretty important in that process.
Yeah, because if the timing's off, then the courier matching, the driver matching becomes more problematic. Because like you said, they might show up and then cancel. Where it's hard to get someone to accept that order because the restaurant's notoriously bad at timing, right? And so this isn't super obvious to you. I think the platforms will show that you're missing certain metrics here, but it ends up causing the delivery time and the consistency on that time to get really impacted. So then that hurts your guest experience, right? And then it hurts your brand on the delivery platforms because guests don't know all these details. They don't care about these details.
They don't care.
It's like, this place is late and cold, and it might be as simple as just not managing the predicted time. And a lot of these platforms, right, they all have functionality for you to say, I need more time, or here's what my prep time is right now. Yeah. In the restaurant's defense, it's a really hard problem because it changes pretty dramatically, and you have a lot of other things to manage.
And they're so busy, they don't have time to even think about how long something's going to take. So they check whatever obligatory box that they're used to checking to accept that order on their side as well. And so I think that's that's problematic. And I think it was Radiant who had a study that came out that I saw that nearly 40% of restaurants have had multiple issues, customer issues that were completely out of their control. So something on the app side, something on the customer experience side, on the customer service side, something on the delivery side. And that's a lot out of your control. There's a few things in your control you need to make sure of. And that order matching, again, there's the technology side, but there's also the human side. On both sides of the equation is pretty important. And then you have people I saw as the gig doctor, is somebody who I see on TikTok who kind of is, I don't know, peeling back the veil and kind of shows you what's happening from the driver perspective and some of the challenges, why they would decline automatically under $10, XYZ, distance, a certain restaurant, and sharing those things. Restaurants need to be aware of that as well, because I think it's important for them to understand the human experience through the entire pipeline is pretty important. Okay.
Yeah, and there's kind of two like fundamental things that are causing this problem on the delivery platform side, right? And that's what we're trying to address these two. The first is that you have gig drivers, so you need the drivers to be able to opt in and accept the orders, right? So you can't tell them what to do; they are allowed to cancel or reject an order. And then the second problem is the economics of these delivery businesses is super difficult, and so they can't afford any downtime with their drivers. And so if the food's not ready on time, it's like, okay, we got to send this driver on to another delivery. And so these are kind of like the fundamentals of why the problem exists. And that's what we're trying to do with Coco. And I think that's a way that robots doing delivery can help a lot. And and this is one of the benefits that's not super intuitive. We can pre-position robots at the restaurants, and we can give you like a taxi line. And so with that, and we're not paying for the downtime of that vehicle
like the line at
there.
The airport, huh?
Yeah, and so what this allows the restaurant to do is the second it's ready, just bring it out and put it into any of the robots outside, and then we'll deliver it. And so it improves the guest experience quite a bit, because the food's going to get there faster, it's going to get there fresher and hotter, and it just decongests the restaurant, because all of the food, the second it's ready, it gets cleared out. And we've had brands actually take this to an extreme where any order that comes in that's a robot delivery, they'll bump it to the top of their kitchen queue.
They're playing
because
favorites.
they know they can make it and they can get it out. And so they know, like, I'm going to cook these food first because I know the driver's already here. And we can do this because we're not paying. We don't have those same two issues. We don't need a robot to accept an order. We can tell the robot, you have to take this order. And we don't pay for like the, kind of human downtime when that robot's sitting there. And even if we have, a remote driver who's supervising these robots, they can supervise a lot at one time. They can focus on the ones that are active, not the ones that are sitting around waiting for food. So we don't have those same problems. And so that was one of the big learnings.
Coco rovers are pushing the decline now button. They're not declining any orders. Okay. So that I like that. Now let's talk about that. You kind of alluded to it, the pilot. So the second part of this, we want to talk about remote piloted autonomous vehicles. What is an autonomous vehicle?
Well, it's funny that I think there's a spectrum here, and I don't think people acknowledge the spectrum enough.
Because most of the rovers are level 4. That's the number I've seen thrown out. Autonomous level 4 rover is like something I've seen thrown out there. So give us the spectrum. Yeah.
Yeah. This comes from the self-driving industry, and it's really like a matter of insurance and liability. And the terminology is stuck. And for food delivery robots, I don't even know how this is applicable, but people like to talk about which level it is.
Yeah.
So on one end of the spectrum, you have somebody is driving the robots. They're playing a video game, right? They're navigating this around the streets. It's like a car racing video game, right? So we train drivers. They're working from home instead of in the car. They're not depreciating their vehicle. They're not paying for gas. So it's a better job than an Uber driver. And so we've hired a lot of these remote drivers. And then as you move along the spectrum, you get to the other end, which is full autonomy. There's no humans involved. The robots are doing their own thing. They know where to go. They know how to navigate intersections and not hit things and all that. So
completely self-contained driving vehicle. Those are the bookends.
Yeah, exactly. And so everyone's somewhere along the spectrum there, whether they say that or not. And
Coco's approach was, let's start on the end that's not waiting for some technological breakthrough, because the economics of this are really strong, even if you have a remote driver. Like all those, the lack of downtime I was mentioning, right? They can switch between any city and any delivery. So you remove a lot of the inefficiencies. And then let's build, incremental autonomy, self-driving software over time. And we can just add it like very partially. So if I can automate 50% of the really basic, I'm going straight down the sidewalk. If I can automate that sort of driving, I can effectively have one driver who's responsible for 2 deliveries at the same time. And that gives us a huge cost advantage that gets passed on as better margins to the restaurant, lower fees to their guests. And that's ultimately like the main reason of like, why do we want, that's one of the key reasons, like, why do we want robots? Why do we want self-driving cars? It's going to make the industry much more profitable.
All right, a couple little hyper-specific stuff, because I know people are just going to nerd out and be like, wait. First of all, anybody who's been playing driver video games, you got a whole new job lane.
Yeah, apply, please.
We
love gamers.
The video games are never going to pay off, kid. Bullshit. Here we go.
Exactly.
Got a whole job. Okay.
LA Times did a piece on exactly that irony.
I love it. Of course, it's going to pay off. You're developing a skill. I love that it's finally paying off. All the kids of the 70s and 80s into the 90s are going, it's about damn time.
Yeah, your parents were wrong.
How many vehicles currently can one driver operate?
It's like low single digits. It can be a couple, and it depends on time of day, right? Like 7 p.m. is really hectic.
Not 12.
Yeah, and so not 12. No,
not 12. Okay. And then how is that actually happening? Are they seeing it? Are they seeing the video screen of what's in front of the robot and behind cameras? Is it like that, or do they see kind of the blip on the screen and move it around? Now I'm just kind of like nerding out. What is the gamified style of approach that they're actually maneuvering?
Yeah, so when they're driving, they literally have an Xbox controller. They have a screen, like a big curved monitor in front of them, and they can see, from all the cameras, they can just see where they're driving. They have turn-by-turn directions. They got a rear view mirror.
So they can see the dude juggling fire at Venice Beach, or the dog that's trying to pee on their tires, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
The reality of moving down the streets of LA.
Yeah. So we're streaming all of that through, a cellular connection.
God, you turn that into content, Zach?
we
fire content.
we don't like we store this for a very short period of time for like security and insurance purposes, but we don't
Zach, let's start a Coco Twitch channel, and I'll host and we can live stream these, and I'll just commentate on.
Man, you see a lot of crazy stuff in the streets of LA.
I'm from LA. I know. That's why I want to see it. It's like live vicariously. I don't have to be in that situation.
That was one of the things where, like, is this going to be a really boring job? And it turned out, the answer is no.
Hell no.
It is not boring.
I mean, that's about as entertaining as anything on the internet, I would imagine, seeing one of those rovers, because also it's an attention grabber, right? If you've seen Coco, any videos online, any content, any user-generated content, or from Coco, or you just see them driving down the road because you happen to be on Sepulveda, like they draw attention. So people kind of gravitate.
It's a big pink robot with flashing lights.
It's a big pink box driving around. I think it's super interesting. Okay, let's then the autonomous driving side of this. So now I'm in the restaurant, because a lot of people have told me, they're like, what the hell is this? Is this like my Roomba and it's going to run into walls and stuff? Like, how is it going to get there? Is it super slow? Is it going to be able to handle potholes? Like, all of these questions pop up in our mind. So I want to address some of those to kind of alleviate some of the stresses, and maybe acknowledge some of the challenges that you're facing as well in this process, because I'm sure there's many. We've seen the videos on TikTok of somebody turning over one of the robots that's been vandalized, has been turned on its side and cracked open. So let's kind of address a few of those. As far as navigating kind of the streets of LA, are they going on curbs? Are they in bike lanes? Are they in traffic? Where are they driving?
We mostly use sidewalks.
Okay.
We can use, it depends on the state and what city we're operating in, but we can use roads in certain situations. But it's mostly sidewalks, and we really we try to operate in really dense areas. So these are areas where being in the road is not much faster than being on the sidewalk.
Or slower.
So yes, or slower. That's actually true. Like in Hollywood, for example, it gets so congested in some parts but much better off on the sidewalk. We map the whole city. So we understand curb infrastructure, where the curb cuts are, where the alleyways are, the driveways, how fast people walk on each segment of the sidewalk, how that changes by the day of the week or the time of the day. So
construction, things like that. Okay.
We basically take like Google walking directions, but then there's like a robot branch of it, right? It's like, okay, this is the fastest path for a human to walk. And then how is that different for a robot? And it's like, well, I can't use the sidewalk here is terrible. It's going to mix up the food a bunch and it's going to be slow. And, going down Hollywood Boulevard is going to be really busy with people, and people are slow to navigate because we drive really slowly around people and they're going to take pictures of the robots and stuff. So we try to avoid people. We travel in
selfie.
We get too many selfies, not good for food delivery times. We try to travel on like very underutilized sidewalk stretches that have the best infrastructure possible. And LA was a great test bed for this. And, similar to Houston was also a great test bed for this because different neighborhoods have totally different infrastructure and different problems we've had to solve. That's part of our core technology is like, how do we navigate this city that both, make sure that the food arrives in the best condition possible and as fast as possible.
Yeah, and let's touch on that a little bit. I'm very concerned if I'm a restaurant person that I put my food in this pink box with 4 tires on it that's going to go to this house a half a mile away, that my food is going to be completely ruined, that it's going to run off the curb, that it's going to hit a pothole, that somebody's going to kick it, whatever it might be. So alleviate that a little bit. What is happening with the robot that allows that not to be the reality? I'm sure it happens every once in a while, but how is that not the norm?
So we've designed the robot to basically be the best possible courier environment that you would ever get on one of the platforms, right? Because it's kind of a lottery. Like, okay, they're going to put an insulated bag. Is this going in the trunk? Is this going to go in the seat?
Yeah.
My French fry's going to get eaten.
Cars are much better.
So I actually saw the other day a guy on a motorcycle delivering an order for one of the third-party platforms, and he was on a motorcycle. The food was in a plastic bag, and it was draped over the side of the motorcycle, and just like banging against the side of the bike. And I'm like, man, that is not the way.
I've seen somebody on a Segway with a backpack that's like holding like 8 pizzas like stacked. I'm like, this can't.
Yeah,
so at least it's a consistently known environment, even though it may be going into and across environments that are challenging. But that again is a big part of your technology, is to kind of manage that piece of it and know what it's driving itself into. And then I'm sure drivers, the pilots, then also have a certain level of training to understand how to keep themselves out of precarious situations when going down the street.
Yeah. And we've designed the vehicle very meticulously for this. So there's really soft suspension system. We have hot and cold compartments inside of it. It's super insulated, so it'll keep hot things hot and cold things cold. It's got like custom cup holder, to make sure that drinks aren't spilled. We actually do a lot of coffee delivery, and I think we can deliver coffee better, like way better than you can get on any other platform right now, because it's really soft and rested in like a cup holder. I mean, it's like it's like a gimbal or something that's keeping it steady.
All right, you got the suspension dialed, huh?
Yeah, and we calculate routes that preserve that food quality. We deliver a lot of ramen. We deliver a lot of coffee. These are very hard to deliver items. So I think we
need to walk with coffee and not spill it. So I can appreciate that. Let's distance. I was very fascinated to understand distance. Am I going 5 miles, 2 miles, 1 mile? What's the distance and what's the average travel time? Break that math down a little bit.
Yes, we're always increasing distance as our speed and consistency improves. Right now, we're a little over 2 miles for what we deliver, which I think would be surprising to most people who think about like a sidewalk robot, because that's quite a far walk. We are traveling at much faster than walking pace on average. And if you've seen these things in LA, that they go pretty quick. And again, we try to stay on sidewalks where there's no people or cars around. So
So yeah, we go up to 2 miles, and in a city, I mean, that can be 50%, 60, 70, 80, depending on the neighborhood of your total volume. And it's also the customers that I think most of these businesses care the most about, because those are the customers that are going to come into your restaurant. So you're treating these local customers, these local guests, with the best possible delivery service. So I think that's really important.
Okay, distance and speed. I got that. Last thing I want to touch on is security. Right. So what is the security process protocol? And I was just interested in insurance, like who's then liable for, a lost or stolen or vandalized XYZ. I'm sure something you deal with. Break that down a little bit.
Yeah. So, and you mentioned this earlier, like the rate at any sort of interaction or failure with the public, like you mentioned, you've seen those videos, is really insignificant. It is much smaller than the rate at which a driver just disappears with your food.
Yeah, I figured.
And so the industry standard is not great right now, so it's not too difficult to be better than that.
No, man, I've seen some stuff where they had drivers up to 30% have admitted to scarfing a bite of
crazy
food. Yo, that's nuts. That's a big number. Even if that's inflated by double, 15% of drivers have somehow messed with food. That's problematic. Again, the robot's not doing that.
Robot's not eating your fries. And we actually have a camera inside the vehicle. So we actually monitor food condition when it arrives. We make sure that the restaurant put in all of the items they were supposed to put in. So we can do a lot of things with technology to make these kind of error rates go down, to make sure the guest experience is as good as possible. Nobody's eating your French fries. We put a lot of care into that. We do have a field operations team. So we have local people in the market that can respond to any of these sort of incidents when they do happen, to make sure that the food's recovered, the vehicle's recovered. We work with the city very closely on how we do all of this. This is all baked into our insurance policies.
On camera as well, so I'm sure that there's an easy process for.
We work very closely with the city. We have a great relationship with the city. And we have 360
like it'd be pretty important.
What's going on?
What then is the quick fix though? Let's say it happens, going down, Sepulveda Boulevard, and somebody kicks it over and pries it open and takes that food out. How then am I getting food to that guest? What's the recovery process potentially? And secondarily, who then is financially on the hook for that?
Yeah, so we refund 100% of those situations, and then we basically Coco does, yeah. Oh. And then we make a judgment call. It's a very low percentage of orders, so it doesn't actually impact our economics at all. And like I said, it's much lower. Yeah, and it's much lower than the rate at which the courier just doesn't show up or drops the food off in the wrong place or something. So we track this number very closely. So we basically make a judgment call. We refund the food, and then we determine, can our local field operations associate recover the item if it's still in there, assuming they didn't smash the robot open. It's very locked. It's very hard to get at, but assuming the food's still there, it's can we get a field ops associate to recover the food and hand deliver it to the customer and apologize for the delay? Or is it faster for us just to place a reorder and have it delivered, and basically do an expedited delivery? And so we make that judgment call. We ask the customer what they'd like to do. We try to minimize this as much as possible. It's very uncommon, but we do guarantee these restaurants, there's guardrails in place to make sure that we recover every single delivery.
Okay. That was a solid job, Zach, of Restaurant Techno Babble. We need more of being able to translate order matching, autonomous vehicles. I think that's good. I think also a lot of people out there are just really unsure and don't like the idea of losing control of their process. But to your point, the human error can be considerably higher. So, all right, everyone, that's it. Now, big important ask of the audience. If you're in LA, Houston, wherever Coco is, please comment with a selfie or a pic or a video of Coco going down the street. We want Coco to be as famous as the restaurants that they're servicing, man. This is great. Zach, good stuff.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. All right, everybody. That again was RTB006. We talked with Zach Rash, co-founder and CEO of Coco, based out in LA. Third-party delivery driver order matching. Now we understand. And remote piloted autonomous vehicles Still don't quite understand, but now I get at least what the hell's going on. So Zach, I appreciate that. All right, everyone, that's it for Restaurant Techno Babble. Appreciate you all. Cheers.